to come to Slovenia. We met last year at the end of the year in Trieste when he was introducing his new book, that 30 seconds, that hasn't been yet published, but it's going to be published in English. It's his third book. The second one was his graphic novel, Power Born of Dreams, about his experience in Israeli prison, that we also hope will be able to translate and publish in Slovenian in the next year or so. The first book was a collection of his political cartoons and illustrations, Palestine in black and white. And Mohammad is also now a lecturer at the Arab-American University, thank you, in Ramallah. And there he also teaches illustration and art, and perhaps there is also a space for more cooperation also between the art institutions or the universities. We certainly hope that these events can somehow build on further cooperations and open space for art, but especially also for voices that talk of freedom of expression and freedom of just creation. I think it's important also maybe to mention that tomorrow Mohammad has another talk in Maribor, and also an exhibition of his works is going to open there. So if you have anyone in Maribor, or if you have time to go there tomorrow, warmly welcome to that event as well. And I'll just stop and let the floor.
Thank you for having me here. Actually, I've skipped from my university to have a vacation here, but another lecture and another talks in here. It's a good opportunity for me to meet the Slovenian people and to feel how much they are supportive for us as a Palestinian. We need this kind of feeling that there are some people around the world who they believe in our case and who they are supporting us. Always I start with Edward Said, the Palestinian scholars, the Palestinian American scholars who used to teach in Columbia University, because I think his thoughts, it's very important to be reflective, or it's the main representation for us as intellectual and visual artists when we say that nations themselves are a narration. The Israeli always want to block our narration, our narrative, and to create their propaganda against us as a Palestinian, and to represent us as a Palestinian as a human animal. It was explicitly mentioned with the beginning of this genocide to justify what exactly they are doing right now, not just in Gaza, and also in the West Bank. I'm from Jenin. Just last weekend, I was in Jenin because my father in the hospital. The window of his room in the hospital, at the hospital, just you can see the demolished house in Jenin camp. Just yesterday, someone was killed in Jenin city. These two young guys, Watan and Ahmad, one of them, unfortunately, he is in the Israeli prison under the Israeli administrative detention. He is my nephew, the son of my sister. Another one, Watan, I call him Watan because his father, when he was born, his father was in the Israeli prison. And Watan means the homeland. Watan was arrested by the Palestinian Authority 45 days ago without going to court, without seeing his lawyer, without seeing his family inside the Palestinian prison in Jenin. This is the situation in the West Bank. When I published my second book, I've mentioned that the story it's not over. Still, the story, it is going on, because the book, it's talking about my experience, my journey inside the Israeli prison, comparing my life inside the prison with the Palestinian life outside the prison. The conclusion will be that all the Palestinian people, they are prisoners, even inside the prison, in Gaza, in the West Bank, and all the Palestinian cities, even the Palestinian in diaspora. I think they are in prisons because they always feel of nostalgia. They want to go back to Palestine. They want to visit Palestine without having this opportunity. all of these stories, it's not over. One of these stories about Nidal Luhedi, Nidal, my friends from Gaza. He is a journalist. Last year, when I've been in a tour in Europe to publish my second book, I was talking with some friends about him. He is a great photographer. And we were talking that we need to make exhibition for him in Europe. One from Gaza, one photographer from Gaza, and bring someone from Jerusalem, one from the West Bank, to be meet here in Europe. Because in Palestine, as a Palestinian, we cannot meet. Like Mahmoud Muna, the guy who you are hosting, the first time I met him in France. His house is far away from my house in Ramallah, just 20 kilometers maybe. But I cannot meet him because of the restriction, because of the wall, because of the checkpoint. Our idea was to invite Nidal Luhedi to France with someone from West Bank, his name is Wahaj, and one from Jerusalem. But unfortunately, on the 7th of October, Nidal was missed in Gaza. Until now, no one knows exactly where is Nidal. That's why I think I wrote in the end of my book that all of this story, it's not over yet. Another one, my friends, Maysar Baroud. When I was started to do my comics, the comics rely on, the main narrator of my comics is Small Bird. During the interrogation with the Israeli interrogator, used to tell me that, do you think that you are going to be with the Palestinian heroes inside the prison? Do you think that you will meet heroes and intellectual inside the prison? The Palestinian prisoners, they are criminal. And because we consider the bird as a symbol of freedom, he told me the Palestinian prisoner, if they can catch or cut any bird, they will eat it. Just because he wants to mention the bird as a symbol of a freedom. But when I was moved from the interrogation center to the nakbe prison, the Palestinian prisoner used to catch the small bird, because it was in April, it's springtime in Palestine. They used to catch small birds that used to follow in the court of the prison, and they used to feed these birds and to teach these birds how they can fly. Can you imagine that these Palestinian prisoners, who they theoretically lost their freedom, they teach the symbol of freedom, how it can be free. That's why I used Maysar Baroud. He is my friend. He used to live in Gaza, but at that time, during COVID time, he used to draw all of these sketches and artwork using the bird as a symbol of freedom, because he wanted to represent the freedom during COVID, and because of the situation in Gaza. I told my friend Maysara, I want to use your bird as a reference for my bird to create a new character to represent the freedom. Unfortunately, Maysara Baroud has lost his studio with the beginning of the war, has lost his home. Just last week, he moved to Paris. He left Gaza because his home was demolished and his studio was demolished, and he has lost all of his artworks. I did exhibition for him in Ramallah, drawing all of this, his artwork. All of this artwork, he has done this artwork during the war. And now, last year, I've done exhibition for him, reproduce his artwork in the walls for exhibition or for gallery in Ramallah. The third story, why all of this story, it's not over yet. My brother Thamer, he is the father of Watan, who is now in the Palestinian prison. During the war, the Israeli jailer, they have broken his glasses, and you can see his photo after and before the prison, how much he has lost from his weight. Thamer has spent all of his time in the prison without glasses because the Israeli jailer has broken his glasses and refused to send him glasses to see inside the prison. All of these stories that I mentioned in my second book, it's not over. Still, all of these people, they are suffering. still all of these people, they are facing the Israeli and unfortunately the Palestinian also atrocity, just because they want their freedom. That's why, or that's how I can justify why I mentioned that all of this story, it's not over. I started with my journey with this comics, trying to do some sketches, but because we are in Palestine, we don't have comics industry, we don't have this kind of school to teach comics. I tried with all of these sketches. One of these sketches, the Israeli officer, while I was traveling back from Jordan, and I had like any artists from around the world, I had my sketchbook, and when they found my sketchbook, they asked me, why did you draw us like this, like the last panel? And exactly the Israeli soldier, they were surrounded me like this panel. I told them, that just because exactly that's what's going on right now. That's what we are exactly as a Palestinian, what we are facing. My first book was, as she mentioned, it wasn't actually a collection for my political cartoon, because we are in art academy. I was thinking that I need to improve my visual language, improve my way how I can do the cartoon. Most of the Palestinian and Arab cartoonists, they use the technology to produce their political cartoon, and I thought maybe I should use another tool and another medium, create new figures, a new way to do my cartoon, and that's how I get into this kind of style. I did many cartoons about the Israeli wall, the war in Gaza, not the last war, because since 2008 and Gaza facing this aggression from the Israeli, tried to do this kind of intersection between the Palestinian issue and the rest of the issues around the world, pollution, dictatorship, corruption, make this intersection between the Palestinian issues and the issues from around the world. I tried also to humanize the occupiers, the Israeli, because I want also to provoke them as a human being, to create a mirror for them when they see my cartoon. That book gave me this chance to meet many I think, important comics artists like Joe Sacco, Seth Bookman, and Peter Cooper, and many comics artists from around the world. And then, because all of these journeys and opportunity, it wasn't enough to improve my knowledge about the comics. I applied for a Chevening scholarship to get my master's degree from the UK, and I did my master's degree about the comics. I've met many also, I think, very important artists like Steve Bell, Martin Rosen, and many British artists from the UK. I got the opportunity also to visit many exhibitions, galleries, and all of this kind of facility that we don't have in Palestine, actually. Try another kind of art, not just illustration, and also sculpture, graffiti, and many kind of arts, because it was a chance for me as an artist who lives in Palestine with this besiege, with all of this lack of resources, lack of facilities for the artists to try to do all of this kind of art, and even this kind of intaglio print that we don't have in Palestine, because we use the chemical material, and because it's been used for creating bomb and all of these things, we cannot use this technique in Palestine. That's why it was a great opportunity for me in Palestine to try all of this kind of techniques, even new topics, talking about the human being, the environment, this big mural about the environment, and all of the problems that facing the human being because of the environmental issues. Unfortunately, because of the coronavirus, I escaped from my prison in Palestine. I face it again in London. It's when I moved to London to get my master's degree also, coronavirus came, and I backed to my prison. All the world became big prison. And in one of my lectures with School of Visual Art, I was talking with a student in Manhattan all of these students who they live in United States in their very lovely houses, has the internet, material, they can buy whatever they want from the Amazon and from online shopping. And they mentioned that we are in a prison. But that took me back to the prison. I told them, no, you are not in the prison. If you want to try the prison, you should know what exactly the prison. And also while I was in the UK, also, I visited many galleries for artists from the UK. One of them, George Hem, he was hired by the Israeli government in 1917 to create the visual identity of Israel. And you can see exactly how he illustrated the Palestinian people as a Bedouin, as a primitive, and Israel, or the Israeli, brought all of this modernism and technology to Jerusalem, big building and cars and factories and all of these things. Exactly what was mentioned by Edward Said when we talk about the Orientalism and colonialism. But what we are facing as a Palestinian people, we are facing settler colonialism regime. And the settler colonialism, it's so different than the colonialism. Because the settler colonialism, they want to dehumanize the Palestinian, not just represent them as primitives and the people who they don't have culture and don't have art. No, they want to dehumanize them and also to represent them as a human animal, as killer, as extremist. That's why also I wanted to know more about the settler colonialism and their tools, and how we can use the art to rehumanize the Palestinian people, or unfortunately to prove as a Palestinian artist that the Palestinian people, they are a human being, they are not a human animal. And you can see all of these things, the settler colonialism practice, how the Israeli has stolen our culture, our identity, even our food, when they mention that the hummus or falafel is Israeli food, because it's not Israeli food. It's from that region. I'm not arguing that it is Palestinian, but Syrian has food, this kind of food. Jordanian has this kind of food. How you can make this food belong to these immigrants who they came from Europe? I don't know. But this kind of settler colonialism strategy to build their identity on the ruins of the indigenous people. And we are the indigenous people. Still, we are not demolished people. That's why exactly one of my exhibition was stolen from inside the International Criminal Court in 2019. That's why the Israeli arrested me and put me in the prison, because they want to block the Palestinian voice, they want to block the Palestinian narrative, and to create their own propaganda about us as a Palestinian people. During that time, I was thinking maybe I can also rely on some photos from the Congress Library. They had many photos for the Palestinian people, creating a coloring book for the youth, but I found it's not this a good way. Maybe I will do it later, but at that time I was thinking, no, I will invest my time during my master's degree just thinking about the comics, and because I did also many research about Art Spiegelman and how he used the comics to represent the Second World War and what exactly the Jews has faced during the Second World War in Europe, and how he represented the Jews as a mouse and the Nazis as a cat, as a strategy, and it was very good. The second one was Joe Sacco, who used the journalism comics as a way to represent the Palestinian issues. And I think Edward Said has written the foreword for his book Palestine, which was published in the United States. That's why I came with Palestine, Power Born of a Dream, my story inside the Israeli prison. Tried to use this kind of technique, the linoleum or relief print, or this kind of technique, what do you call it, relief print or linograph, I think in France. I used also the strategy of Joe Sacco, when he represented himself as a main character for the story, try to go back to some stories from inside the Israeli prison to represent how the Israeli prison it's looked. Even the proportion of the panels, most of the panels in my comics, it represent, or the reference of that panel, the proportion of the area where the Palestinian prisoner they used to live. Try also to use the technique, what they call it, out of panel, just to give this feeling that as a Palestinian, we want to go outside the panel, outside the prison, outside the besiege that we are facing inside Palestine. And also I use some reference from MC Asher and some international artists, well-known artists, just to represent how the life inside the Israeli prison and outside the prison. Some photos as a reference for my pages, how I created also the texture of my scenes, how the prisoner they are counting their days, repeating some of these, what do you call it, a splash page, because when you see this page again and again and again, it's the same. Our life inside the prison, it's the same. Every day, it's the same. Nothing else. Staying at your bed, do nothing, watching the television right now, watching television, or sorry, that's before the 7th of October. After the 7th of October, the Palestinian prisoners, they don't have television. They don't have even food, enough food. But at my time, prisons, they were like hotels, if we compare it with the prisons right now. I used the lino cut because I wanted to use this kind of technique. Second, because you know when you carve this area, the linoleum, you are creating the light, you are creating the white area for your illustration. And that's exactly what the Palestinian prisoner they have done. They are creating the light for the Palestinian people outside the prison. The carving as an action is very important for the Palestinian prisoners. Most of the Palestinian prisoners, they carve their names on the wall of the Israeli cell. I couldn't do that actually, but most of the Palestinian prisoners, they have done that. That's why I've decided I need to carve the story about the Palestinian prisoners outside the prison. If we cannot label this comics as fictional or non-fictional, biographical or non-biographical, because in this comics I use my story as biographical story, but at the same time I use another stories for my brother Samer, my friends Maysara or Nidal or Hedi or Manal or many people from West Bank, Gaza and Jerusalem. That's why it can be journalism comics like Joe Sacco style. At the same time, I cannot call it fictional comics because it's a true story, but at the same time, the bird as a narrator, maybe we can label it as fictional comics. Try to represent everything inside the prison, from the first night, the first moment inside the prison, how they moved the Palestinian prisoner from prison to another prison, the interrogation as a part of the life inside the prison. Also, it was represented in this comics. Try to talk about my life inside the prison because during the interrogation, the interrogator just went to bring some water or something from outside the prison. That's how I stole in small paper from him and pencil. And this pencil and paper became all of my life, just writing notes about what exactly I will draw when I will be released from the prison. Another illustration talking about the interrogation and also the Israeli court, because in Europe they think that it is the only democracy in the Middle East, and it's not. The people who they are demanding Hamas or the Palestinian resistance to release the Israeli hostages from Gaza, they forget that we as a Palestinian have more than 10,000 Palestinian hostages in these Israeli prisons without going to court, without any reason, just because they want to keep them in the Israeli prisons. Try to use more than one technique in relief print and monoprint. It was a great time for me in the UK to use all of these facility and to use all of this material. That's why also I used more than one material and more than one technique in my book. And some story from Jerusalem. This one for one of my friends in Jerusalem. It's real story. Another story for a kid who was present or who was killed in a small village around Ramallah. Another one about one of my friends. He's a journalist from Bethlehem. His father purchased a piece of land for them because they used to live in refugees camp, and his father wanted to build a good and big house for his kids, but unfortunately the Israeli confiscated their new land, and he became again as a refugee. He kept the feeling that he is a refugee because his new land was confiscated by the Israeli. And all of this story from my life, using the art as tool. I cannot call it tool of resistance, actually, the art, because the resistance and the people in Palestine, they have paid heavy price for their resistance. That's why, as an artist, I cannot call my art resistance, but also talking about all of this fiction and all of these things in Palestine. The last story was, I was in Ramallah, and I've met a very old man, and he was very sad. My friends told me, look, that guy, the Israeli killed his son while he was going to the school, and then they arrested the dead body for his son, and many dead bodies. Still, with the Israeli, they do not give these dead body for the Palestinian family to bury them. That's mean, even you are inside Palestine or outside Palestine, in Gaza or in West Bank, even if you are alive or die, death, the Israeli will arrest you. You are in a prison. That's why also I represent his story. When I finished my book, and last year also, during the genocide, I was in Europe in a tour, and then moved back to Palestine on the 8th of October, actually. And I was thinking what exactly I can do to represent the war. I couldn't do any interview with these people in Gaza during this genocide. They do not have a time to tell you exactly what's going on with them. That's why I relied on some material and I've done more than 100 illustrations, try to translate exactly these videos and these photos from the social media and from my friends. And all of these illustration was published in my last book, which was published in Italy, France, and Spain. And next month it will be published in the United States. But it is not my last project, actually, because my brother Thamer was released from the prison. And he told me what exactly happened with him during the last year inside the prison. And I thought it is very important to also illustrate the life of the Palestinian prisoner after the 7th of October. Trump has said that he will convert Gaza to hell. And the Israeli jailer, they are telling the Palestinian prisoner when they arrest them, welcome to hell. And I wanted to talk about this hell, talk about how the Israeli use the artificial intelligence. In Europe or around the world, your discussion about the artificial intelligence, how it can be used in the universities as a tool of education, as a tool of art, as a tool of for the medical reasons or all of these reasons. But we are the only people who they are facing artificial intelligence as a tool of killing. They are using all of this technology to kill the Palestinian people, even inside the prisons. That's why I wanted also to talk about the life inside the prison. Still, this book, I had a meeting with my American publisher to be published next year. I've done this work just last week, talking about the life inside the Israeli prison after the 7th of October, and some stories from Gaza, from my friends in Gaza. And all of these stories are real story. You can see that as art student, I try to create a new style to represent how the Israeli became like a machine of killing. You can see the figure of the Israeli soldier, the difference between the Israeli soldier and the human being or the Palestinian people inside the prison or inside Gaza, and try to compare between the life inside the Israeli prison and inside the big prison which is called Gaza. And I hope that it will be published also here in Slovenia. Thank you.